Hello and welcome to the second season, second episode of The Wise Guy 75. Glad you all could make it today, and sadly it looks like I have no followers. No one's left me any messages on what to talk about or what would be good for the day. Apparently D&D isn't as big a topic as it once was. Or I'm just not as good at it as I thought. Today I thought I would just talk a little bit about some of the board games that I've played maybe, and how some of those really tie into being almost like one-player versions of role-playing games. Thunderstone is one of those. It's a really cool game. One person can play it at a time, or multiple people can play it. I think it's like anywhere from 1 to 6 people. And it's a lot like a dungeon quest. You pick characters, you buy allies, and then you go into the dungeon and you kill things, mostly monsters. You come back out and you reap rewards. You get bonus cards and stuff. It's pretty cool. And then there's Lord of the Rings, the deck building game. That one you can play as one person too. And it's fairly similar, but not quite the same. It's all Lord of the Rings stuff. It's not Thunderstone. Another one that's really good that I love is Runebound. It's not a one-player game at a time, but you do play multiple people all racing against the bad guys. The bad guys are trying to take over in Runebound, and you and the other people playing are the only hope for the Runebound world. And then probably the oldest game I have that's really cool is Cosmic Encounters. Really, really awesome game. I've bought almost all the expansions for it. You get to play as a space race, and your job is to try to be the last one standing. Each of the different races have different special abilities. Each one gets a card with those abilities listed. Kind of like a futuristic role-playing game, really, or war strategy game. But it's really cool, fairly inexpensive. I think I paid like $60 for the startup box. And then I think it was like $15 for each of the expansions. So that's really cool. And then there's the Pathfinder Game Box game. It's a card game. And that lets you play role-playing games with other people too without actually having a DM. So if you're running without a DM and you don't know how to DM and you want to play something close to role-playing, those are some of the games I would suggest. And then it's starting to get towards the season where everyone's going to be going outdoors here soon. We just got to make it through February, people, and we'll pretty much be there. Start to see spring coming in a little at a time. Just got myself a new card a few days ago. My friend, the guy who's the cameraman, helped me out. Followed me there and followed me. Well, I followed him back, really, but the idea was for him to follow me back, but he got ahead of me somehow, so I followed him back. Had some wonderful chicken nuggets and a Big Mac, courtesy of Ronald McDonald himself. Been looking at this new Flesh and Blood game coming out too. It's looking like a really fun game. It's got some really expensive cards, but you don't need them. It's not like Magic the Gathering where if you don't have the expensive cards, your deck's not going to work. So that's really cool, I think. I think it's cool that they have something for the collectors and they have something for the short-term players and the long-term players. I mean, that was one thing I always hated about Magic. When you got into it, you weren't going to keep up with anyone else. And it wasn't because you didn't know how to play as well as everyone else. It's because you didn't have the cards everyone else had. With Flesh and Blood, it seems to even out a lot more to whether you've got all the expensive cards or not, you still have a really good chance of winning. And it's pretty close to the same concept, except instead of like in Magic where it's two wizards battling, it's two warriors battling. So you don't really have all the magic. It's not quite as religious oriented. A lot of people don't really see Magic the Gathering as religious oriented, but it originally did have a lot of cards that spoke to demonic powers, and it also had some cards that spoke to angelic powers. And some people were just wigged out by that. They just like the original Dungeons and Dragons, people wigged out over saying it was satanic and all this. Every time anything has a picture of a devil on the front cover or on one of the cards, the world's going to end, everyone's evil. I'm not so sure that's true. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And maybe they're right. Maybe it is a little over the top, but honestly, most people don't worry about buying statues of Buddha even if they're not Buddhists, so I don't think it really matters. It's just a picture, and it's just a game. Well, been busy playing one of my video games. It's called Gems of War. It's a lot of fun, and it's real addictive, and sadly it also has in-app payments for items. They're not incredibly expensive, most of them, although you can waste a lot of cash on the game. But they they give you a feel of, if I don't get it, I'm not going to be able to do this or do that. And it is somewhat true, but I'm realizing the best way to deal with it is just to put a couple bucks into it here and there and just enjoy playing it slowly. It kind of gives you a sense of urgency that you don't really have to believe. It is just a game in the end. But it's a fun one, I think, and it's free. You can play it without having any money at all invested. Or you can invest hundreds of dollars and probably not get much more than anyone else, really. You have cooler looking cards, but honestly, it's just cards. They don't play any better than any of the others. They're just easier to start up with. In the end, the game really focuses around matching gems. It's a gem matching game, kind of like the original game Gems. And when you match things up, it powers up your character cards. You'll have up to 4 of them. And then once the cards are powered up, you can use their special ability. Or they have 3 stats to the cards: armor, health, and attack. And those weigh in too, so that you can attack the other cards and defend against the other cards. Kind of running out of topics. I'm just kind of meshing things together here. Really like to hear from some of the people and what they would like to know about board games, video games, card games, D&D, role-playing games in general, or all of the above. I've got a lot of knowledge about these things, and I'm a real old timer. Been playing since I was about 5 at different things. Would love to share some of those experiences with people, but not really sure which ones interest people. So give me a line, tell me what's going on with you, tell me what you'd like to hear, just tell me something. Alright, well, I'm about out of things to talk about today, not a big one. So this is the Wise Guy 75 signing off.